My name is Dr. Eleanor Marsh. I'm an academic reviewer for the Journal of Comparative Religion and Folklore Studies. It's quiet work. I read and publish manuscripts, assess their scholarly merit, and recommend publication or rejection. Most submissions are forgettable, oversighted, derivative, safe. I've been doing this for 7 years. I'm 39. I have a PhD from Durham. I teach part-time and spend the rest of my days reading other people's research in my flat in Bloomsbury. It's a good life, peaceful, until I reviewed Alistair Karswell's manuscript. The manuscript arrived by post 3 months ago. That alone was unusual. Most submissions are digital now, but this came printed on expensive cream paper, bound in dark green cloth, delivered in a proper parcel wrapped in brown paper and string. The title page read, "The Transmission of Malediction, a Historical Study of Cursed Mechanics in Pre-Reformation England by Dr. Alistair Karswell, FSA. I knew the name, everyone in folklore studies does. Karswell was independently wealthy, old money, family estate somewhere in Suffolk. He'd published extensively on witchcraft, folk magic, and what he called practical occultism. Some of his early work was brilliant, meticulous research, obscure primary sources. But over the years he drifted into eccentricity. He claimed to have practiced the rituals he studied. He'd been asked to leave conferences, colleagues avoided him. Still, his scholarship was undeniable. I made tea and I settled in to read. The manuscript was 280 pages, dense, heavily footnoted. Karswell cited sources I've never encountered, manuscripts in private collections, interviews with practitioners in rural Norfolk, references to grimoires not listed in any catalogue. His thesis was straightforward. Certain historical curses weren't symbolic, they were functional, mechanisms that could be activated through specific sequences of actions, symbols, and timing. He focused on one particular method, the runic transfer, from his chapter 4. The curse is not spoken or enacted upon the victim directly, rather it is inscribed and passed. Once the marks are received, touched, read, and retained, the mechanism engages. The victim has precisely 3 months from moment of contact, no more, no less. The method of delivery is immaterial, a letter, a manuscript, a business card. What matters is acceptance. The victim must take possession, however unwitting. I paused at that phrase. A manuscript. It felt pointed. In chapter 6, Karswell reproduced the symbols themselves. He called them the ruins of a making. 3 interlocking marks that appeared in only 2 known sources. A 15th century grimoire from Bury St Edmunds, and margin notes in a prayer book seized during the English Reformation. He included careful drawings. They looked like this, 3 angular symbols, like crude letters from no alphabet I recognised, arranged in a triangle. Around them were smaller marks, scratches. Really, they seemed to spiral inwards. I stared at them longer than I should have. They made my eyes hurt, not from the complexity, but from something else, like looking at them required effort, as if my vision just kept sliding away. I closed the manuscript and made more tea. I wrote my review over the next 2 days. I was thorough but firm. I acknowledged Karswell's research skills. His primary source work was impressive, but his methodology was flawed. He cited sources that couldn't be independently verified. He presented folklore as established fact. He made claims about functional magic that belonged in fiction, not academic journals. My recommendation: reject with invitation to revise. I printed the review, attached it to the manuscript with a paper clip, and posted the parcel back to the journal's editorial office. Standard procedure. I thought nothing more of it, until the letter arrived. It came 8 days later, a small envelope, good quality paper, My name and address written in elegant copperplate handwriting. No return address. Inside was a single card, the kind you'd use for correspondence, expensive stock, cream coloured. At the top, in small beautiful handwriting, 3 months from today. Below that were the symbols, the ruins of a making, carefully drawn in black ink, and at the bottom, you should have been more careful, Dr. Marsh. I examined the card for a long moment, then I set it aside and called the journal. Margaret, it's Eleanor Marsh. Quick question. Did the Karswell manuscript get returned to the author? Let me check. Yes, posted back last week with the review attached. Did he respond? Not officially, though. She paused. He did ring the office, asked who reviewed it. My stomach tightened. What did you tell him? Nothing, obviously. Reviews are anonymous, but he was persistent, asked several times, eventually rang off. I see. Eleanor, is something wrong? No, just curious. Thank you, Margaret. I hung up. I looked at the card again. It was clearly meant to unsettle me. A petty act of revenge from a rejected author. Academics could be surprisingly vindictive. I'd seen it before. But something about it bothered me. The handwriting was too calm, too controlled. And those symbols. I did what any sensible person would do. I threw the card in the bin and went about my day. That night, I slept poorly. I dreamed I was in a field at dusk. The sky was grey. In the distance, something was walking towards me. I couldn't see what it was, just a dark shape, getting closer. I woke up at 4 a.m, heart racing. The next morning, I found another card. It was lying on my doormat, same paper, same handwriting. This one said only 89 days. The symbols were there again, drawn in the same careful ink. I didn't throw this one away. I brought it to my colleague, Professor David Harrington. David taught medieval history at UCL. We'd known each other for years, collaborated on paper about East Anglia folk practices. He was level-headed, practical, and knew more about historical documents than anyone I'd met. I showed him both cards. Someone's playing a rather unpleasant joke on you, he said, examining them through his reading glasses. I think it's Alistair Karswell. I rejected his manuscript. David looked up sharply. Karswell? Good Lord, Eleanor, you didn't tell me you were reviewing his work. You know him? Not personally, but I know of him. He has a reputation. For what? David sat the cards down carefully. For holding grudges, and for being rather unsettlingly well connected. There was a scholar at Cambridge, chap named Dunning, who wrote a negative review of one of Karswell's books years ago. He had a terrible run of bad luck afterwards. Accidents, health problems. He was hit by a car, I think, killed. You're not suggesting Karswell was responsible? Of course not, but he gestured at the cards. Karswell certainly believes he practices what he preaches, and he wants others to believe it too. David recommended I report it to the police. I did. They were polite but unhelpful. Has he threatened you directly? The officer asked. He sent me occult symbols and a countdown. A countdown to what? I don't know. My death, presumably. The officer's expression didn't change. Unless there's an explicit threat, there's nothing much we can do, but we'll make a note of it. They made a note. Nothing came of it. The cards kept arriving. Not every day, irregularly. It's always the same. A countdown, getting smaller, and the symbols. 82 days, 76 days, 71 days. I stopped opening the envelopes, just threw them away as unopened, but then I started finding the symbols elsewhere. Inside a library book I checked out, tucked into a student's essay left on my desk. folding inside the newspaper outside my door. Once, I found one pressed between the pages of my personal diary, the one I kept in my locked desk drawer. I started researching Alistair Karswell. Karswell lived in a village called Lufford Abbey in Suffolk. His family had owned the manor there for 200 years. I found photographs online. It wasn't what I expected. No Gothic decay, no overgrown gardens or rusted gates. It was beautiful, perfectly maintained, honey-coloured stone, manicured lawns, a small lake. Karswell was photographed at local events, parish council meetings, charity garden parties. In every photo, he was impeccably dressed, tailored suits, silk cravats, polished shoes. He had a kind face, grandfatherly. He was often surrounded by children. The local paper ran a feature on him 2 years ago. He hosted an annual Easter egg hunt for village children, donated generously to the Church Restoration Fund, opened his library to visiting scholars. Everyone described him the same way: charming, generous, a pillar of the community. I found the interview he'd given to a small academic journal. The interviewee asked, "Some critics suggest your work crosses the line from scholarship into belief. How do you respond?" Karswell's answer was measured, almost amused. "I respond that scholarships require belief in the seriousness of one's sources. Medieval practitioners of magic were not fools. They were experimenters, scientists of the spiritual world. To dismiss their work as superstition is intellectual arrogance." "And have you personally experimented with these practices?" A pause. "I have recreated certain rituals, yes, under controlled conditions, for research purposes." "And did they work?" Another pause. Then very quietly, "Every time." I called David again. "I need to know about the previous incident. You mentioned a man named Dunning." David hesitated. "Eleanor, I really think you should let this go." "David, please." A long sigh. "Alright, John Dunning, historian, wrote a scathing review of Karswell's work in the 1990s. A few months later, he started having accidents. Small things at first. Tripped on stairs, nearly fell in front of a tube train. Then it escalated. He became convinced something was following him." "Following him?" "He told colleagues he kept seeing shadows, hearing scratches sounds outside his window at night. He became paranoid, reclusive. Eventually, he was killed, hit by a lorry while crossing the street. Witnesses said he seemed to be running from something, though nothing was seen." My mouth went dry. "There were others," David continued quietly. "A librarian who refused Karswell's access to a manuscript. He died in a house fire. A colleague who publicly criticised his work. Fatal heart attack, all within 3 months of crossing him." "And no one's investigated?" "Investigated what? Accidents, coincidences. There's no evidence Karswell did anything. He's never even been near these people when they died." That night, I started hearing it, scratching. It started small, a sound outside my bedroom window, faint, like branches scraping glass. But on the 4th floor, there are no trees. The next night, I heard it again, louder, not branches, something more deliberate. Scratch, 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 like fingernails on stone. I began noticing other things. My cat, normally affectionate, wouldn't come near me. He would hiss if I tried to pick him up, back arched, eyes wide. Colleagues started acting strangely around me. "Eleanor, are you quite well?" one asked after a department meeting. "You look drawn." Another mentioned, casually, that she'd seen someone waiting outside my office earlier. A man, I think, tall. He was just standing there. When I looked again, he was gone. I checked the CCTV. There was no one. The scratching got worse. Now it was every night, not just at the window, on the walls, the ceiling, the door. always at 3 a.m. I'd lie awake, heart pounding, listening to it move around my flat. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I started staying with David and his wife, Caroline. I didn't tell them why, just said I was having work done on my flat. The first night, I slept soundly. The second night, David knocked on my door at breakfast. "Eleanor, did you go out last night?" "No, why?" He showed me the front step. There were scratches in the wood, deep gouges, like something with claws had been scraping at the door. "Must have been a fox," Caroline said uncertainly, but we all knew it wasn't. That afternoon, Caroline pulled me aside. "Eleanor, I don't know how to say this, but we think you should see someone, a doctor, perhaps. You've been under a lot of stress." "I'm not imagining this. I didn't say you were, but David's worried, and frankly, so am I." I left that evening. I was running out of time. According to the last card I received, I had 23 days left. I needed help. I went to the British Library. I needed to find information about the ruins of unmaking. Karswell had cited two sources in his manuscript, a 15th century grimoire and a Reformation era prayer book. If the curse was real, and God help me, I was starting to believe it was, then there had to be a countermeasure. I found a librarian in the rare books reading room. Her name was Miss Whitby. She was older, perhaps in her 70s, with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. I explained what I needed. She listened closely. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, very quietly, "You've been cursed by Alistair Karswell." It wasn't a question. "You know him?" "I knew someone he cursed, a colleague, 20 years ago. She refused him access to restricted manuscript. She died 3 months later." "The house fire?" Miss Whitby nodded. "But before she died, she came to me, told me everything, showed me the marks." She paused. "I've been researching this for 2 decades. I know how the curse works." "Can it be stopped?" "Yes, but not easily." She led me to a private study room and locked the door. From her bag, she pulled out a folder. Inside were photocopies of old manuscripts, handwritten notes, diagrams. "The curse operates through transference," she explained. "The symbols are the marker. Once you've touched them, accepted them, the mechanism activates. Something is sent. We don't know what it is. Karswell sources call it the Appointed One. It had 3 months to complete its task." "To kill me?" "Yes." "How do I stop it?" "You can't stop it, but you can redirect it." She showed me the diagram. "The curse can be passed back to the sender, but only under specific conditions. The symbols must be returned to Karswell physically, placed on his person without his knowledge. If he accepts them, touches them, the curse transfers. And then what? Then the thing that's following you will follow him instead." "How do I get close enough to him?" Miss Whitby hesitated. "That's the difficult part. Karswell is careful. He never meets with people he's cursed. But," she pulled out a newspaper clipping, "he's giving a lecture next week, Occult Practices in Tudor England, at the Society of Antiquities. It's open to the public." "Will he recognise me?" "Almost certainly, but he'll also be surrounded by people. You won't make a scene. You'll have one chance." She helped me prepare. I copied the symbols onto a small card, identical to the ones Karswell had sent me. I practiced slipping it into coat pockets, bags, folded newspapers. "You have to be sure he touches it," Miss Whitby warned. "If he doesn't, the curse won't transfer, and you would have wasted your only opportunity." I had 16 days. The scratching was constant now, not just at night, during the day too. In my office, In the library. Once. In a crowded tube car. I heard it behind me. I turned. No one was there. But everyone around had moved away. They wouldn't meet my eyes. The lecture was in 5 days. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I kept practicing, slipping the card into pockets, keeping my hands steady. I had one chance. The lecture was held at Burlington House, Piccadilly. I arrived early. The room was already filling. Academics, amateur historians, a few students, perhaps 40 people in total. Karswell arrived precisely at 7 p.m. He looked exactly like the photographs, tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit. He carried a leather briefcase and an overcoat draped over one arm. He was smiling, shaking hands, utterly at ease. Then he saw me. For a moment, his expression didn't change. Then, very slightly, his smile widened. He knew. The lecture was brilliant. Karswell spoke for an hour without notes. His delivery was engaging, humorous. The audience was captivated. I barely heard a word. I was watching his coat. He hung it on the stand in the lectern. If I could get to it during the reception afterwards. The lecture ended to enthusiastic applause. Karswell took questions. Then the audience filtered towards the side of the room where wine and refreshments were being served. I moved towards the coat stand. Dr. Marsh. I froze. Karswell was standing beside me. Up close, he was taller than I expected. His eyes were pale blue, kind. I thought I recognized you, he said warmly. I don't believe we've been formally introduced. Alistair Karswell. He extended his hand. I didn't take it. I wanted to thank you, he continued, unperturbed, for reviewing my manuscript, even though your recommendation was unfavourable. It was an honest assessment. Oh, I'm sure it was, though I do wonder if you fully understood the subject matter. He tilted his head slightly. How have you been feeling, Dr. Marsh? Sleeping well? My hands clenched. You look tired, he said softly. I do hope nothing is troubling you. Someone called his name from across the room. Excuse me, Karswell said. He smiled once more, a grandfatherly smile, and walked away. He left his coat hanging on the stand. I waited until he was engrossed in conversation, then I moved quickly. I pulled the card from my pocket. My hands were shaking. I reached into his coat. Dr. Marsh? I spun around. An elderly man was standing there, a colleague of Karswell perhaps. He looked concerned. Are you quite all right? Yes, sorry. I thought this was my coat. He frowned and said nothing. Karswell glanced over. He was still smiling. I had to try something else. The reception went on for another hour. I stayed, nursing a glass of wine, watching. Finally, people began to leave. Karswell collected his coat and briefcase. He stopped to chat with an event organizer, shaking hands, making his goodbyes. I followed him out. He walked towards Piccadilly Circus tube station. I stayed 20 paces behind. The street was crowded, evening commuters, tourists. Karswell stopped at the newsstand to buy a paper. This was it. I moved quickly, came up beside him, pretended to look at magazines. He was paying for the paper. His briefcase was at his feet. I dropped my purse. Oh, damn it! I crouched down, opened his briefcase just enough to slip the card inside. He didn't notice. I stood up, heart hammering. Karswell took his paper, picked up his briefcase, and walked away. He didn't look back. I stood there for a long moment, breathing hard. Then I went home. That night, I didn't hear scratching. For the first time in weeks, my flat was silent. I slept. The next morning, I called Miss Whitby. I did it. I put the card in his briefcase. Did he touch it? I don't know. He must have. Eventually, he would have opened the briefcase when he got home. Then it's done. The curse has transferred. What happens now? She was quiet for a long moment. Now we wait. I went back to work, taught my classes, met with students. Life returned to normal, but I kept checking the news. 12 days later, I found it. A small article in the Suffolk Gazette. Local historian killed in tragic accident. Alistair Karswell, 67. A respected historian and author was killed yesterday evening in what police are calling a tragic accident. Karswell was found dead near the grounds of his estate in Lufford Abbey. Witnesses reported hearing screams, but no one saw what happened. The body was badly injured, though police have not released further information. Investigators believe a large animal might have been involved, though no such animal has been found. Karswell was well known in the community and would be greatly missed. I read the article 3 times, and I called David. "Have you seen it?"
"About Karswell?" "Yes, dreadful business."
"What are people saying?"
"Not much. The police are being tight-lipped." "Well, I have a friend at the coroner's office," he said.
David's voice dropped.
"He said the injuries were unlike anything they've seen, as though something had torn him apart."
I closed my eyes.
"Eleanor, are you there?"
"I'm here."
"This doesn't have anything to do with you, does it?"
I didn't answer. I received one more card. It arrived a week after Karswell's death. Same handwriting, same expensive paper, but this time it said only, "It has finished." No symbols, no countdown, just those 3 words. "It's been 6 months. I'm fine. The scratching never returned. My cat tolerates me again. I sleep through the night." I haven't told anyone the full story. David and Caroline suspect, but they never asked directly. Miss Whitby sent me a letter last month. She said other scholars have come to her over the years, people cursed by Karswell. She helped some of them. Others refused to believe until it was too late. She asked if I was willing to help if someone else came forward. I said yes, because here's what I know now. Magic is real, curses work, and there are people in this world who use them. Alistair Karswell was one, but he wasn't the only one. I still teach, I still review manuscripts, but I'm more careful now about whose work I reject, because I've learned something important. Some grudges are more dangerous than others, and some people really can kill you from a distance.